We love the great outdoors, and in weather like this there's nothing better than a long tramp through the British countryside. But the Health Protection Agency is warning us that growing numbers of us are coming home with an unwanted souvenir from our country walks. It's an illness from infected tick bites called Lyme disease. Wendy Fox was diagnosed with Lyme disease in 1992, following years of unusual symptoms. What did the doctors first say was wrong with you?
Well, initially it was stress at work, fatigue because I was doing a physical job. I was suffering from numbness and tingling in my fingers and in my feet, but because at the time it was cold weather, I was told it was due to that.
The late diagnosis meant that even aggressive antibiotics couldn't combat the infection.
Over a number of years the symptoms got progressively worse, and eventually I suffered a brain swelling and a spinal cord swelling which left me visually impaired and paralysed from the waist down.
That's the devastating thing about Lyme disease. If it isn't caught early, it can be very difficult to treat. It affects your immune system, making it turn on your own body, damaging your joints, your heart, your higher brain function, and, as in Wendy's case, causing blindness and paralysis. It's an incredibly tenacious and nasty bacterium. Professor Sarah Randolph and her team from the University of Oxford have been studying how the disease is transmitted via ticks. So how do ticks get on to us?
Ticks are sitting on the vegetation looking for an animal from which they can take a blood meal. This animal might be a deer, it might be a small mouse, or it might be a human. As humans pass by the vegetation, the tick will move from the vegetation to the human.
So what happens when you get bitten by a tick?
It's equipped with very sharp mouth parts, like a hollow needle, with which it pierces the skin, and they have backwardly pointing teeth so that it can cling on to the skin while it feeds. And it takes about 3 or 4 days to swell up from that tiny size to a baked bean size.
So how do the bacteria get from the tick one minute to you the next?
Well, while the tick is sucking blood up through its mouth parts, it's also injecting saliva into you in order to keep the blood flowing, and the bacteria are hitching a ride in the saliva.
Although only 1 in 3 ticks carries the bacteria, cases of Lyme disease are on the rise. The Health Protection Agency estimates up to 3,000 people a year are infected. The good news is, if it's caught early, Lyme disease is really easy to treat. Steve and Justine Wright's encounter with ticks was worryingly close to home.
I was sat in the garden one afternoon. Later on that evening, when I was having a shower, I noticed a black spot on my right leg. We discovered it was a tick. We removed it with tweezers.
5 days later, a distinctive rash developed. As a nurse, Justine recognised it immediately and went to their GP for antibiotics.
I feel incredibly lucky that I had the appropriate treatment very, very early, because apparently, as long as you catch it early, the long-term diagnosis is very, very good.
But there are even earlier steps to reduce the effects of the disease.
If you've been bitten, the chances are the tick will still be attached. You will see it attached to you.
How do you get rid of it if you do?
The best thing is to use a pair of tweezers and place the tweezers on the skin underneath the tick and pull firmly but gently so that you pull the tick out of the skin. And if you remove the tick within 12 hours of being bitten, you significantly reduce the chance of being infected.
Although the number of people infected is small, it's worth checking yourself out for ticks or tick bites if you've been out and about. And do go and see your GP if you have any of those warning symptoms.
A tiny tick has meant that my life has changed irretrievably. If I'd have been diagnosed early, it might have been completely different.